Let's talk trades, shall we? Because again, I think this Luka extension does so much for the front office in terms of the trade department. We can put our best foot forward. We can enter trade negotiations without looking so desperate. And we know Luka has our back. He's signing off on all of these deals. Again, we want to improve upon our Mark Williams wheeling and dealings. I think Luka knows that himself. And now that he has a better understanding of the Lakers cap and the Lakers assets, I think we will be much more judicious moving forward with our next move. But I think now that Luka Dončić is fully on board, I think the Lakers will be aggressive. So I want to talk about what an all-in trade for multiple marginal pieces looks like around Luka Dončić. I know the Lakers will still probably prioritize a Giannis or even a Jokic type trade if that ever becomes a possibility. But let's say Luka Dončić gives Rob Pelinka the blessing to go quote unquote all in on upgrading the roster with 2 or 3 legitimate starter level players. What would that look like? First, I'll tell you what going all in looks like. I think the Lakers all in package right now involves all of their expiring contracts, Maxey, Gabe, and also Rui Hachimura, who is more than just an expiring contract. I think he's actually a valuable young piece. So I think the Lakers quote unquote all in package right now would be Rui, Maxey, Gabe, throw in Dalton Connect as well, because he's still, a recent former first round pick, even though obviously his trade value has kind of taken a dip. And then beyond that, the Lakers also have their 2031st first and a couple of pick swaps. They also have 1 second, and then come 2026 draft night, they'll be able to trade their 2026 first as well. But let's say the Lakers want to make an quote unquote all-in trade this season. What would that look like? It's going to look like Rui, Maxey, Gabe, Dalton, 2031st first, and swaps. That is $44.7 million of salary, $40 million of which are expiring. So that's what the Lakers quote unquote all-in package would look like. With that package, what marginal trade can the Lakers concoct where they're getting 2 or 3 starter level players back? So for me, I think the Lakers are looking for something like a much better version of the 2023 deal that they struck with the Utah Jazz, where they traded Westbrook and a first for D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, and Malik Beasley. At that time, you could argue that the Lakers got back 2.5 starters between D'Lo, Vando, and Beasley, right? And they were able to also offload Russell Westbrook, even though he was just an expiring. So if the Lakers were able to get D'Lo, Vando, Beasley for Westbrook and a first, what could they get for a 2031st first, Rui, Maxey, Gabe, Dalton? And I think Dalton and Rui are still very valuable players, or at least contributing players. So it's a much better package than Westbrook and a first. So I'm expecting an upgraded version of D'Lo, Vando, Beasley. Now, what would that look like? So I have a couple of ideas. Before I throw them out, though, I'm going to heavily caveat this section because these are half-baked thoughts, okay? I am just workshopping this to the public. I'm not saying these are likely to happen. I'm not saying these are trades I prefer or would prioritize over better premium ones. I'm just saying these are deals that would work financially come the trade deadline. And these are deals that would give the Lakers several different pieces who might click. These are all hypothetical deals, right? Just go with the flow. Don't be one of those guys on X and nitpick. Just digest the general framework and general notion of these deals. And remember, I'm not saying the Lakers should do these. These are just trades to think about. These are hypothetical packages that are, at the very least, interesting to consider, and packages that we can kind of rejigger if the value doesn't make sense, because things always change in the NBA, right? 2 months ago, Dalton Connect's trade value looked better than it does now after Summer League. So yeah, again, these are hypothetical packages that are at the very least worth considering, even if ultimately it may not make sense for one side or even both sides. So now that I've heavily caveated all those things, who's ready for some very premature all-in marginal trades? Raise your hand. All right, first deal. Okay, so let's try and concoct a trade with the Atlanta Hawks. Again, for all of these deals, we are going to be sending out the Lakers' current best all-in package. I'm not including Austin Reeves in this because I think the Lakers fully intend to re-sign Austin Reeves. So for most of these packages, Rui, Maxey, Gabe, Dalton, 2031st first are going out. So let us look at this Atlanta Hawks deal. Rui, Gabe, Maxey, Dalton. I forgot to put the 2031st first in here, but the 2031st first will be included in here. 4, and again, I'm not saying I would do this. I'm saying this deal works. I'm using Spotrac, by the way, to help make this all happen and make the numbers work. Those 4 players and the first 4, Onyeka Okongwu, who's on for 3 more years at a very reasonable contract of about $15 to $16 million per year. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, newly signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Luke Kennard, he's just in there for salary matching purposes, and he's expiring, so it's not a big deal. And Vit Krejci, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Vit Krejci is a 6'8" versatile point guard who's a career 39% three-point shooter and shot 43% last season on 1.6 three-point makes. So he's low-key very good, especially at that size. He's like a 6'8" point guard who can shoot. So don't turn your nose at Victor Krejci or Vit Krejci. Anyways, I understand. I see some comments. There's no way the Hawks would accept this. I have already heavily caveated this section, folks. In the hypothetical that Trae Young gets injured next season and things aren't working out and they want to blow things up, because that is always a possibility with the NBA these days. Things change very quickly. In that hypothetical where they decide and they have buyer's remorse, hey, we don't want Nickeil Alexander-Walker anymore, and actually we want to move on from Onyeka Okongwu. In the hypothetical that both teams are willing to come to the table, this is a deal that works out financially that I would do if I were the Lakers and if the Atlanta Hawks were willing. The Lakers get Onyeka Okongwu, so there's your sort of like power forward, 6'9" versatile power forward of the future next to Luka Dončić, and he's a guy who could honestly also play next to DeAndre Ayton. Nice energy big who can rebound the ball, but also has offensive versatility. He can hit the three-point shot. He kind of reminds me of a poor man's Dollar Tree version of Bam Adebayo. So you get Onyeka Okongwu for the future, who's very young, and he's still on for 3 years at a very, very cheap contract. And then you get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who you wanted this season anyways, to be the Lakers' new point of attack wing defender. Luke Kennard, whatever, expiring, and then Vit Krejci, again, low-key underrated piece in this deal. 6'8" versatile point guard who's a career 39% three-point shooter. So it sounds like you guys think the Atlanta Hawks won't do this deal, which means if they were willing to do this deal for whatever reason, because their season has gone under, we should do this type of deal. And I think this is the type of deal that the Lakers should be very open to, quote unquote, going all in for. And I agree. Maybe the Hawks won't. This is an unlikely trade, right? But again, in the event that things go south and they're just like, hey, give us your 2031st first, and we'll take a flyer on Dalton Connect. Maybe we want to re-sign Rui Hachimura. If they're willing to do that, this is like a no-brainer for the Lakers to do, right? Or this is like a pipe dream, most ideal scenario. These are 3 different pieces, maybe 2, Onyeka Okongwu and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think would fit perfectly for the Lakers and address 2 different needs for us, right? Onyeka Okongwu kind of fills that like semi-rim protector, but also pick and pop big need. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker fits that point of attack defense need. And Victor Krejci, 6'8" versatile point guard. You know, he can pass and also hit 3-pointers. But again, to people's point in the comments, the Hawks probably won't accept this. But again, this is the type of deal that I think the Lakers should be looking for with their 2031st first. I do probably have to mention that I guess Luka's signing this extension might make teams think that 2031st first is now lessened in value because he's probably just going to re-sign that supermax with the Lakers coming off of this deal. So we do have to keep that in mind. Like maybe the 2031st first no longer has the same value that it did have before this extension. So maybe these deals actually are more pipe dreams for the Lakers, but in our most ideal scenario where everything aligns, I think these are the types of deals the Lakers could look at. So let's move on to the second deal. This one's a little bit of a weird one. Okay, so same package, right? We're going to trade Rui, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect. We had to give up some assets to the Brooklyn Nets to take on Jared Vanderbilt's salary to make this work. So this is the 3-team deal with the Toronto Raptors, Lakers, and the Brooklyn Nets. The Lakers and the Raptors had to give up some pick compensation, like second-round picks, to the Brooklyn Nets in order to dump Jared Vanderbilt to free up the money. And then the Raptors are going to get Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect, and the 2031 first. Meanwhile, the Lakers get RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, and Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji is, I believe, expiring or only has 1 year left. RJ Barrett has 2. Jakob Poeltl has 2 as well. I can't even read my own this image. But anyways, this works financially if the Lakers are able to offload Jared Vanderbilt and the Raptors take on these expiring contracts. What do you guys think about an RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji deal? This one I'm kind of lukewarm on because RJ Barrett's such a strange player. He still has potential, but if he doesn't have the ball in his hands and he's not allowed to sort of be a bucket, who is he really? He's not a bad player. He's not a role player, but he's also not a superstar. And the problem might be for RJ Barrett, the fact that he's not a role player and he doesn't have a fully defined role yet. He's like he's not a great defender consistently. So what does he really do if his shot's not falling, if he's not able to shake and bake a little bit? Jakob Poeltl is an interesting big. He's not exactly the lob threat that you'd want next to Luka, but he is a rim protector. So if we're able to get a backup big who's more of that vertical alley-oop threat, then maybe trading for a Jakob Poeltl might work because he's that enforcer in the paint, that bruiser who takes up space. And then Ochai Agbaji, I actually think he's probably the more intriguing part of this deal just because he's still young. He's like very well built. He's 6'6". He's shown some flashes of good defensive positional versatility. So yeah, it's just a deal to consider. RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji. Will you guys do that deal? Or would you swap somebody out from the Raptors? Would you do Brandon Ingram instead of RJ Barrett? I actually don't think I would do that. I think I like RJ Barrett more than Brandon Ingram at this point, even though the reunion story with Brandon Ingram would be cool. I just think Brandon Ingram needs the ball even more than RJ Barrett does. But yeah, again, this is another example of a deal that works financially if all teams are able to make this work, where the Lakers are getting 3 different positions of need. Even if RJ Barrett doesn't work out, maybe Ochai Agbaji does, and maybe Luka is able to unlock him. And then Jakob Poeltl, he's a very meat and potato center. He's not that exciting, but you know that he's a starting level center, right? And so Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett's sort of like the mystery wild card here, along with Ochai Agbaji. But you kind of also know who RJ Barrett is if given the opportunity and the usage. The problem is, what if he doesn't have the usage? Will he be able to find his role? If the Lakers can turn RJ Barrett into Andrew Wiggins, if Luka is able to turn RJ Barrett into Andrew Wiggins, that might be huge. And I believe they're both from Canada as well. The Maple Mamba. Was that Andrew Wiggins' nickname or is that RJ Barrett's? I'm not sure if RJ Barrett adopted the Maple Mamba after Andrew Wiggins. But yeah, this is another deal where, again, the Lakers get several pieces. Maybe they address them. It's a little bit more wishy-washy than the Atlanta Hawks deal for sure, because these are players who are sort of like good but not great. But I think this is a deal that I would still accept. All right, the next one, I know people are going to kind of lose their minds and say, there's no way the Pistons are going to do this. Like, I agree. But we're playing hypotheticals, right? And we're jigsawing the situations in which an opportunity presents itself for the Lakers, a previously unrealistic opportunity, and the Lakers capitalize on it. Kind of like the Luka Dončić trade. So I'll move on. Trade number 3 is going to be with the Detroit Pistons. So we are going to trade Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect, and the 2031 first. I don't have to go through the litany of why the Pistons would do this. They probably won't, but let's say they're season spirals. Jaden Ivey is coming off of a pretty bad injury. They have front office changes, et cetera, et cetera. They just want to rejigger things, and they actually need some shooting, even though they signed Duncan Robinson. So Dalton Connect would help. And they just want the Lakers 2031st first. Maybe since Tobias Harris is going to be an expiring, they want to take a flyer on Rui Hachimura. Let's just say the Pistons want to do this, okay? Rui gave Maxi Dalton 2031st first for Isaiah Stewart. He's on for 3 more years at a flat $50 million. Now, Isaiah Stewart, problematic figure, but Luka does need his bulldog and his enforcer, and that would be Isaiah Stewart, the best bodyguard you could have, and one of the most underrated small ball big men in the NBA from a defensive standpoint. He's actually a great rim protector, and his motor is insane. You guys know this about Isaiah Stewart. And then we also get Caris LeVert, $14 million. He's on for 2 more years. He just recently signed with the Pistons, actually. So Caris LeVert, he's aging at this point. We kind of know who he is. His ceiling is capped, but that's still a great guard off the bench who's rangy and long, can play defense, a little bit streaky offensively, but he can handle the ball. So you get another like 6'6" sort of wing who can handle the ball for you off the bench. And then Jaden Ivey, he is actually expiring this year. I think this is the last year of his rookie contract before the Pistons have to make a decision on his next deal. And honestly, this might all be moot because I think he's extension eligible. So in the next 2 minutes, maybe they sign Jaden Ivey to his next extension. But in the event that they don't come to an extension agreement with Jaden Ivey, then, the alarm bells should be ringing. And that would make Jaden Ivey more available. And Jaden Ivey is the type of player that I would absolutely take a flyer on next to Luka Dončić. He has improved tremendously as a 3-point shooter this last season. Again, he is coming off a pretty bad injury, but I just love his athleticism, his speed, and his burst. And I think it would be a great complement and combination to Luka Dončić, even with Austin Reeves on the roster. And, I'm not even sure that like Jaden Ivey wouldn't be a great 6-man off the bench sort of microwave scorer, even though I think he's a starter level type player. I wouldn't mind him coming off the bench. And maybe once Austin Reeves signs his new extension, we eventually pivot Austin Reeves to the bench and play a backcourt of Jaden Ivey and Luka Dončić to have that. You have that slow man's crafty pace game. And then on the other end, you got that speed punch and that athletic dynamicness from Jaden Ivey. So this is the Pistons deal. Isaiah Stewart, Caris LeVert, Jaden Ivey. I would 100% do this deal if I were the Lakers, and I would go all in and push all of our assets in for this type of deal. Would the Pistons do it? Who knows? Maybe not. But if for some reason the opportunity presents itself and the context makes sense for both parties, I would do this deal if I were the Lakers. All right, last deal, because I got to end this soon. Trade number 4 is with the Chicago Bulls. Lakers are trading out the same package: Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect, the 2031st first. And the Lakers are in return acquiring Zach Collins, expiring $18 million. Patrick Williams, he's on for 14 more years. Patrick Williams is on for 4 more years. He's kind of got a problematic contract, $18 million those next 4 years. So it's almost a crippling contract. And then an expiring Ayo Dosunmu at $7 million. So actually don't like this trade because the Lakers are almost doing the Bulls a favor here by taking on Patrick Williams 4 years. It depends on how you feel about Patrick Williams, because he has shown flashes of being a very versatile defender. And he has shown flashes of being a pretty good offensive player. He just hasn't been able to put it all together. But at the end of the day, Patrick Williams is a 6'7", 3-and-D wing. He kind of reminds me of like a younger DFS in a sense. So as the cap rises, can the Lakers stomach $18 million of Patrick Williams 3 years from now? If they can, and they think they can mold him into the 3-and-D wing that he always should have been, I would be maybe more open to this deal. Zach Collins is also an interesting big, because there's your pick and pop big, right? He's a guy who plays with motor. He can pass the ball a little bit as a big man. He rebounds the ball. He can shoot the 3. He's on an expiring deal. He's maybe more of a flyer in this sense. But again, this is the problem with this deal is Zach Collins is expiring, and so is Ayo Dosunmu, who would be sort of the prize gem of this, trade. If Ayo Dosunmu were locked up for the next 3 years on a $12 million contract, I think this deal would make more sense for the Lakers. But I don't know if I'd give up the 2031 first, Rui Hachimura, Dalton Connect for an expiring Ayo Dosunmu, for the rights to pay Ayo Dosunmu whatever his next contract is, and then 4 years more of Patrick Williams, and then a flyer on Zach Collins. I don't know. Maybe Luka would want that type of flyer, and the Lakers are pretty confident that, we'll be able to re-sign Zach Collins and Ayo Dosunmu. We like this core. Lakers are giving up best, third, and fourth best players here. Possibly. I think Rui Hachimura at this point is probably better than Patrick Williams. But yeah, I think something to consider, though, is how we're adjusting the value of the 2031 first, now that we know that Luka is on board. Prior to Luka signing this extension, I thought it would have been crazy to trade the 2031 first for anything but a star. But now that we know he's probably going to be a Laker for life, that 2031 first kind of loses its value. And so we kind of have to reframe and rejigger our mindset a little bit to the point where, yeah, on the surface, Pat Williams, Zach Collins, Ayo Dosunmu, this is a very uninspiring trade package, right? But you could convince me if we're able to rejigger this, rework the framework a little bit. I think I would do it, obviously, if Kobe White was in this trade, but at the same time, Kobe White is expiring, and we would also be trading for the rights to sign Kobe White to his next $25 million contract. So I don't know about that. But yeah, again, this is just a hypothetical. These are half-baked ideas of mine, and they are ones that actually work financially thanks to Spotrac. But I think what I wanted to present here is just other avenues that the Lakers can go, quote unquote, go all in, but not necessarily for a superstar, but for several starter level pieces who could actually fit well around Luka Dončić, and getting 2 or 3 different players who address several areas of need for the Lakers. Because realistically, what is Rui Hachimura, Dalton Connect, 2031 first going to get you? Like, what superstar is that package going to get you now that teams know Luka Dončić is a Laker for life, quote unquote Laker for life, crossing fingers, etc. So with that said, I do think Rob was smart to say in his press conference today, this is not just about trying to get the next superstar. This is trying to keep our options open. This is trying to keep ourselves nimble, keep the flexibility around Luka fluid, so that we can be modular in the way that we reshape this roster around Luka Dončić. And also, right now, LeBron James' situation is very fluid as well. So we have to keep that in mind. So that does it for this episode. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys for just tuning in. Thank you guys for consuming my content. Thank you guys for putting up with my ramblings and my weird ass trade ideas. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on X at Lakers Legacy Pod. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel at Lakers Legacy Pod. With that said, this has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.